Hi everyone, I'm Mike. This is the Sunday Art Show, and I'm going to paint along with Landscape Artist of the Year. So back in 2019, I was lucky enough to take part as a wildcard artist, but due to COVID, this year there were travel restrictions, which meant that I couldn't attend. So each week so far for this series, I've been doing a paint along, just taking a screen grab from my television. So what I'm going to do for the third episode is take some A2 mixed media paper, and then I was thinking, well, if I was actually there, I might end up using something like this, which is my little Inktense travel kit. And this actually comes with a little water brush which splits into two halves, but I'm going to put that to one side and use a rather larger water brush, just because of the size of the paper basically. So what I'm going to do to begin with is grab some of the ultramarine blue here. So we'll get a nice amount of water involved with that. So just, whoops, that's going everywhere, but that's okay. That's what I want for the moment. So we'll get some of that blue, a little bit of the yellow we've got here as well, a bit more of the blue. And I'm going to use this to put in an initial wash to represent the tall, I don't know whether you would call it a skyscraper, but it's certainly a tower block on the right hand side here. So the idea is, I was thinking, I use this little kit from time to time. I think it's really good actually, and it's really compact, as you can see, and it's just really handy. The colours can end up being really quite vibrant, and it's just really handy to have with you to add a little more punch and obviously colour to a sketch, that you might do with your biro or what have you. So there are some lower kind of blocks of flats or something here, and then another building there. And let's add a little bit more yellow to the mixture just to change the colour a little bit. And then we've got another tower block which is a bit lower. So I haven't got the heights quite right, but I just want to create a sense of place and try and capture the scene reasonably quickly, as if I was doing a preliminary sketch or something on site. Now I didn't do anything fancy. I just simply photographed my my television screen. So I'm just going to grab some of the other blue that comes with this kit. It's more of an ocean blue, if you like. And when I took that screen grab, or that photograph of the screen, there's a little bit of a purple hue in the sky, which I don't think was actually there. But why not make use of that, artifact? And we'll put a little bit of purple in the sky here. You get the water flowing. Let's get a bit more red into the mixture. So you can see I'm keeping the washes quite transparent at the moment and very dilute. And as some of this wash goes over the top of some of the tower blocks, that's okay. I think that's just going to add to it, a sense of mist, or height in a sense to the buildings. So we'll let that do its thing as it kind of runs down the paper. And now we need a bit of green. So back to the ultramarine blue, a bit of the yellow, and so as you can probably tell, I'm not copying the scene exactly. We'll put a little bit more yellow into the mixture. But just trying to capture a little bit of atmosphere and light and dark. Okay, now next thing we need to put some of the water in. So I'm just pondering which blue to use actually. So I think I'll probably start with the lighter blue. And we'll let that come down the page. So this water brush, you squeeze the button here to increase the water flow. And to be honest, I would generally use this on a smaller scale. Just grabbing some more of the green. Let's put some of that into the water. So it's a little bit difficult to cover a piece of paper this size in a continuous wash, but it's quite, it works really quite well to create that sort of broken dry brush effect. So it's a case of working with the materials you've got, just like you would have to, if you're outdoors. So back in with that blue, and then I'm just going to grab a little bit of this. Can't remember what colour that is. I think it's just a burnt umber. So let's mix those two together to get a little bit of a darker colour for the water in the foreground. And the thing with the Inktense is, this looks probably pretty similar to watercolour that I'm putting down here. But once this dries, it's basically acrylic ink, I think. So it will be completely waterproof. Now I'm going to just grab some of this orange from this little tablet here, little pan, and let's put in a little burst of that across for the distant shoreline. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll be back in just a second. All right, well, having laid things out on the paper, it's not fully dry, but it's close enough. Let's grab some more of the two blues and mix those together. So this time, though, keeping things not quite as fluid, so we'll put in a few shadows, which are a little stronger than I've put in previously. Now I'm definitely not going to be replicating the exact architectural details that are going on in this tower block, but I can hint at them by choosing the direction of my brush strokes and just looking at the general shapes of the shadows, really. So for example, multiple windows on the front of a tower block, if we squint at them, they just become dark rows. So I don't need to pick out every single window, but I can just suggest the presence of multiple windows. So I'm adding some more yellow to the mix, just like I did before when I went to the left-hand side. And on this tower block, put a line down there. And a line down there. And then I want to darken some of the shadows in the foliage, so I'm grabbing some of the ultramarine blue, mixing that with some of the yellow and the burnt umber, a bit more of the blue. We'll still keep things reasonably fluid, but we'll kind of again, not being too precise, but just trying to capture the general pattern of light and dark that's going on across on the other side of the water. Now the sky didn't come out quite as purpley as I wanted, so I just grabbed quite a lot more of the cadmium red and mixed it in with that bit of green I had. I'm picking up some of the ocean blue, or whatever it is, and let's see if we can get a little more drama into the sky here. Now, whoops, so that's what we have to be careful of. And I don't mind that on the edge too much, but I want to kind of preserve, if I can, most of what I've drawn here on the right. But I'm not overly worried. You know, if it goes over, it goes over. But we'll try and keep the water content of this sky wash reasonably high, so that it does its own thing. And actually, in fact, what I'll do is just spray some of those regions just to try and loosen up the brushwork that I've put in there. Then with a paper towel, we'll just try and keep most of the drawing intact. Well, the paper's still a little bit damp, but what I'm going to do now is switch to a round water brush. And what we'll do is, let's see what I can never remember with these pans, to be honest with you, apart from the basics, which colour is which, so I always have to test it. Well, that's black, so I don't want that. That's quite a nice dark green, so that'll come in handy. Let's put some of that in for the foliage. That wasn't where I was planning on starting, but so we can kind of add a little more texture here and there. And then we'll switch to something else. What's this one? That is... I'm not actually sure what colour that is. It's almost like a very dark green, but let's use that to start to put in some line work for some of these tower blocks. So again, I'm going to try and stay, you know, this is meant to be, as I said, a fairly quick study. So the main thing is to establish the structure of the bulk of the building rather than get too tangled up in the exact architectural details. So, for example, I deliberately haven't drawn the top of that roof there. But using the round brush just gives me, yeah, a little bit of a different range of mark making compared to what I had with the flat. Okay, well, as I come across to the left, I'm going to take some of that ocean blue and mix it in with the darker green and a little bit of the lime green as well. And once again, you know, I can just squeeze the button on the handle of the water brush when I want to loosen things up. So it's so efficient to be able to just switch between fairly controlled line work and ultra loose washes at literally the push of a button. So when you are outside, you know, or on location, you know, you could be in a restaurant or something, but it's a really good way to work. Now over on the, I've got kind of blue here and green here, so let's just put a little bit of orange into our mixture. Just, it's not really there in the reference, to be honest, but it's just to kind of you know, change things up a little and see. So we've got a little bit more of an orangey brown. Now I want to add a flash of light colour on the shoreline here. So this is just the pure yellow. It's looking a bit green because it's going on over the top of the blue, and also because my brush wasn't fully clean when I grabbed it. But we'll let that run in there. And then underneath that I want to put a line that's very dark. But, you know, that needn't be a continuous line or particularly smooth. And then the lighting is pretty diffuse on this day, but I do want to suggest some kind of reflection here. So what we'll do is go back to the ocean blue and mix that in with the green, grab some of the ultramarine blue, a little bit of this, I think that's burnt umber or something, I can't remember. But the point is I want a muddy colour, nothing too primary or secondary. And then you can see I've got shadow here, so what we'll do is directly below that we'll put a little patch and dilute that, so hopefully it'll run down in a minute, leave a gap. And in fact what I'll do again is just spray that with the water bottle to let it do its own thing. Oh, that went into the foliage, which was unintentional, and really that ought to be over to the right a little bit, so let's lift off some of that with my finger. And we'll add a little bit more pigment into that wet patch. And then here as well, and then we'll go back towards the blue. Oh, that's way too much, that was the wrong blue. I'll lift off some of that in a moment, and then get some of the darker green. And then what I can do now is, while that's, you know, making its way down the paper with a paper towel, I can just, you know, whip through that so that things are, you know, a little broken up in the way that reflections often are on water. And then what we can do is, having, you know, taken this very loose treatment, is just add a bit of focus to one particular area of the painting. So I've just mixed up some of the dark green with the black, but it's a little bit of a thicker mix now. So if I squint at, if I want to make this structure here the focus, if I squint at my reference, there really is quite a lot of dark shadow down here, and it's much darker than I've got it. So what we can do is add that in, you know, with a combination of loose and more controlled marks. But by going darker, That will obviously add more contrast compared to what we've got there at the moment. Again, we don't have to be lured into too much detail, but it's just a way that, if we were going to do a full-on painting of this, if we were there on the day taking part in the competition or whatever it was, or or just at home in the studio, then it's a really quick way to just kind of assess what you want to do for a full-on finished painting. I mean, of course, this, you could consider this a finished painting if you wanted to. Just depends how you view things. But the beauty of this little travel kit, as the name implies, is that it's so compact and it's so lightweight. And then the water brushes as well. I tend to carry quite a few water brushes with me if I'm going to do this type of work, so that I don't have to, worry about refilling them. But they really are, very effective, given how compact and light they are. You're not having to constantly fill up a pot of water and so on. So again, we'll try and put some reflections in. So we've already hinted at where they are, but there's perhaps a bit of a dark shadow there. So it's not fully resolved, but it's a pretty quick study which effectively allows us to experiment with tone and composition. And, by keeping the contrast stronger here, it creates a natural focus. So I think the eye is naturally drawn to the right-hand side of the painting. So it kind of breaks up from things being too symmetric. And, certainly not photorealistic, but if one was pretty familiar with the skyline, even though it's not totally accurate, or this line of buildings, I think if you'd been to West Reservoir in London, hopefully it would be recognisable. And as I say, this could then inform, a more finished work back at the studio. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this quick little demo. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you next Sunday for the next episode of the Sunday Art Show. Thanks very much for watching.